Welcome back to The Controversial Mom, where we're not afraid to ask the hard questions, say the things the media won't, and fight for faith, family, and freedom. I'm your host, Emily Jones, and if you're tired of political correctness, if you're sick of being told that up is down and wrong is right, well, you're in the right place. This week's episode is about something that every single one of us are feeling: the collapse of common sense in America. From politics to schools to everyday life, the obvious truths that used to guide our country are being thrown out the window. And the cost of losing that common sense, it's hitting every one of our lives. So let's talk about it. America used to run on common sense. You didn't need a college degree to understand the differences between wrong and right, or to recognize a bad idea when you saw one. But today, it feels like the truth somehow is upside down. Bureaucracy has replaced wisdom, and people are being punished for saying what everyone knows is absolute truth. Here's one example that absolutely blows my mind. In New York City, the leading candidate for mayor is an open communist. Open communist. There's no hiding it, no shame in the label. And what's his big platform? Well, rent control and grocery price controls, of course. It's the same failed communist playbook that has destroyed economies from Cuba to Venezuela. Yet, a majority of the citizens are actually cheering this on and rallying behind this. And AOC is one of his biggest champions. Now, let's just pause here for a second. These are people who live in one of the most expensive, most overregulated cities in the country. And their solution is somehow more regulation and more control. It's like watching someone pour gasoline on a fire and then acting really surprised when the flames get higher. Common sense tells us that when the government tries to set prices, shelves go empty, landlords stop building, and people suffer the most are the exact same people the policies were supposed to protect. But instead of learning from history, somehow our culture keeps running back to these same failed ideas that are just dressed up in new packaging. And sadly, this isn't just about New York City or Montgomery or Washington, D.C. Every single one of us, we're seeing these examples in our daily lives. Let's take sports, for example. We still have biological men competing in women's competitions, stealing opportunities and records from female athletes every single day. Everyone knows that this is unfair. Even Gavin Newsom admitted that it was. It violates every basic biological and basic common sense principle. Yet, entire states and entire institutions are bending over backwards to pretend that this is perfectly normal and acceptable. And if you dare to say otherwise, suddenly you're the bad guy. Or look at government bureaucracy. I've had friends try to start small businesses, and they all tell me the same thing. It takes more time to file government paperwork than it does to actually get customers in the door. It's like Washington wants all of us to fail before we even begin. And let's talk about my favorite thing: parents at school board meetings. Instead of being respected as the primary voice in a child's life, they're treated like extremists, and in some cases even domestic terrorists, for simply speaking out and standing up for their kids. Think about that. Parents are showing up to say one simple thing: I care about what my kids are being taught, and the response is to label them as dangerous individuals. This is absolute insanity. And these are not fringe cases. These are everyday signs that common sense is collapsing all around us. And if you're like me, you probably feel it in your gut. You read a headline, you hear a policy proposal, and your first reaction is, this absolutely makes zero sense. So how is it that we got to where we are today? How did America, once the land of practical wisdom and no-nonsense grit, end up so upside down? Well, part of it's because of our universities. For decades, elites have been trained to overcomplicate absolutely everything. They take simple, straightforward truths and they bury them under jargon and theories and progressive ideologies until regular people like you and me feel like they don't have the credentials to actually speak up. And then those same people graduate, they get into positions of power, and then they export that crazy nonsense on the rest of us. Then there's the bureaucracy. Agencies are run by people who have absolutely never done the job of those that they regulate. They sit behind desks, writing rules for farmers, business owners, parents, teachers, without ever stepping foot into the real world that the rules affect. And have you ever noticed how the people making the rules for schools actually haven't been in the classroom in decades? Or the ones that are regulating small businesses have never actually signed the front of a paycheck. That's not just arrogance, it's pretty dangerous. And let's not leave social media out of the mix. Platforms reward the loudest, most extreme voices. Reasonable, common sense people like us are completely drowned out, while these outrageous hot takes go viral. Over time, of course, this actually warps what people think is normal behavior. So, no, this collapse didn't just happen. It's been very engineered. And it's been engineered by elites who profit when regular, everyday citizens like us are silenced or sidelined. And of course, there's a cost to all of this. The costs are real, and they're hitting everyday families like you and me. Small businesses are crushed under regulations that make no sense. Ordinary people are forced to jump through hoops, while illegals and special interest groups find plenty of loopholes to operate within. Families are splintered because they're told to doubt what they see with their very own eyes. And here's the hardest part. When you dare to speak the common sense out loud, you risk your job, your reputation, and sometimes even your safety. People have been canceled, fired, silenced for saying the simple, obvious truths. Men are men, women are women, and freedom works better than socialism. Let me tell you this. I have felt a lot of this personally. I've been in rooms when you can see the people that want to agree with you, but they're too scared to nod their heads. They're too afraid to vote for the policies that make sense. Because they know that if they say the wrong thing at work or in their social circles, it'll cost them. That's the culture that we currently live in. And that's why so many people have stayed quiet for so long. But that silence also has a cost. When common sense collapses, freedom collapses with it. And if we don't start speaking out, our kids are going to grow up thinking that upside down is actually the normal reality. So what is it that we need to do? How is it that we fight back? As always, we start at home. Parents need to raise kids who know the difference between truth and lies. Children who understand the value of responsibility over excuses, and who aren't afraid to stand apart when it's required. It's not easy. I know that firsthand. It feels like the culture is screaming one message, and you're whispering this tiny little reality to your children. But that whisper matters. Do not underestimate the power of what you teach your children at the dinner table. The second thing we have to do is restore our community standards. Local voices, families, churches, small businesses, all of them. We have to set the tone. Not the elites in Washington, not the elites in Montgomery, not some crazy international bureaucrat. Your neighborhood, your church, your school board. That is where the fight for common sense really happens. And finally, we need courage. Common sense can't come back if we're too afraid to say what everyone else is already thinking. You don't have to have the loudest person in the room, but you do have to have the honest voice in the room. It's going to take ordinary people refusing to be silenced, refusing to bow down, and refusing to pretend that lies are truth. America doesn't need more experts in ivory towers. We don't need more politicians with fancy slogans. What we need are parents, pastors, neighbors, and workers that are willing to stand up for reality. Common sense built this country, and it's common sense that will save it once again. So here's my challenge to everybody. Be the voice of reason in your home, in your workplace, and your community. Do not outsource your wisdom. Stand up, speak truth, and live out the values that made this nation strong. Because if we can revive common sense, we can revive America. As always, guys, thanks for joining me with The Controversial Mom. If you found value in this week's episode, be sure to share it with a friend and leave a comment. And help spread the word that parents, families, and faith still matter in America. Remember one thing, truth is not controversial. It is just inconvenient to those who want to control the narrative. Together, we can revive common sense and take our country back. One family, one community, and one voice at a time. Until next week, stay bold, stay faithful, but most of all, stay controversial. We'll see you next week.